Today's video. Introduction. The unexpected moment. Not the moment the baby utters its first cry, nor the moment the woman lies on the delivery table, her back soaked with sweat. The unexpected moment comes afterward, when the room falls silent, when the congratulations are over, when everyone returns to their lives, leaving you behind, with a baby in your arms and a strange feeling in your heart. You look at the child, knowing you love it. But at the same time, you realize something hard to name. Everything has changed, and there's no turning back. No one told you that, after becoming a mother, a void would open up. Not because you lack anything, but because you've just crossed a major life boundary. Your old self is behind you, but your new self hasn't had time to form. You're still you, but not the same as before. You're called mother, but you don't yet know who you are in that role. In that moment, many women don't cry. They just remain silent, a silence that is very deep, very weary, very lonely. The outside world continues. The clock still ticks, the phone still rings, meals are still served. Only the woman inside is reeling. This isn't a moment of weakness. This is the moment a person has just given birth to another person and at the same time, lost herself in silence. Women are taught how to be a mother, but not how to survive. From the moment a woman knows she's pregnant, she begins to be taught. Taught what to eat for a healthy baby. Taught how to sleep well for the fetus. Taught what to avoid, what to do, and what to do correctly. The list of things to do is so long that there's no room for the question, what about me? After giving birth, the teaching doesn't stop. It just changes form. How to breastfeed correctly. How to train the baby to sleep. How to hold, bathe, soothe, and talk to the baby. Each person offers different advice. Each article sets different standards. The mother becomes an unwilling student in a never-ending course. But amidst all that guidance, there's a huge gap. No one teaches a woman how to survive when she no longer gets enough sleep. No one teaches her how to cope with prolonged exhaustion without days off. No one teaches her how to live with the feeling of doing too much, yet still feeling it's never enough. People say, motherhood is instinct. But no one says that instinct isn't enough to keep a person standing strong amidst loneliness, pressure, and self-loss. No one teaches a woman how to face a body that no longer belongs to her. A body that is tired, aching, changed, but must continue to function as if it had never been damaged. No one teaches her how to look in the mirror and accept an unfamiliar image, while outwardly hoping she will get back in shape quickly. No one teaches her how to handle conflicting emotions, loving her child unconditionally, but sometimes just wanting to be alone. Grateful for her child, yet still missing her old life with a pang of sadness. These feelings are rarely expressed, because mothers fear being judged as selfish, as not loving enough. So women learn to be silent. They learn to swallow their weariness. They learn to smile when they are broken inside. For many, motherhood is not just about caring for a child. It is a process of gradually erasing oneself to fit the image of the good mother that society has created. An image that is always patient, always gentle, always enduring, and never allowed to give up. But no one tells women that, when you constantly live for others with no room for yourself, you don't grow, you wear down. Existence is not the same as motherhood. Existence is knowing when you are running out. It is being allowed to stop without feeling guilty. It is being able to say, I'm tired, without having to explain or apologize. But those survival skills were never included in motherhood textbooks. Women had to learn them on their own. Exhausted, confused, feeling like they were the only ones who couldn't keep up. And yet, many mothers still went on to live. Not because they were well prepared, but because they had no other choice. The loss no one names. Not all losses allowed. There are losses without funerals, without condolences, without anyone standing beside you and saying, I know you're hurting. Motherhood brings with it so much loss. The woman doesn't lose her child. She doesn't lose her family. She doesn't lose anything that society considers sad. But she loses very important parts of herself, and no one calls that suffering. She loses time, not just free time, but the right to control her time. Eating when hungry, Sleeping when sleepy, resting when tired, these simple things suddenly become luxuries. Her day is divided into very short, constantly interrupted, never complete segments. She loses her personal space. Space for silence. Space to be alone without being needed. Their bodies are constantly being touched, called by name, and demanded of by someone. And gradually, they forget what it feels like to be alone without feeling guilty. They lose their old bodies. Not just their physique or skin, but a body that was once familiar, that once responded in a way they understood. Now, that body is more tired, more painful, slower, yet it must continue to function as if it had never suffered anything. No one gives them time to rediscover themselves. They lose the feeling of being independent individuals. Their names are gradually replaced by roles. Someone's child, someone's wife, someone's mother. They are called by everything except their own name. And in this silent change, they begin to wonder, if not a mother, then who am I? They lose the right to be legitimately sad, because all around them is the familiar saying, having children is happiness. So what's there to be sad about? These words aren't malicious, but they're enough to extinguish any attempt to name the pain. So the woman learns to deny it. Deny the exhaustion. Deny the hurt. Deny even the loss they're not allowed to acknowledge. But the pain doesn't disappear when it's denied. It only subsides, sinks deeper, more silently. It appears in unwarranted outbursts of anger, in an inexplicable emptiness, in nights lying next to her child but feeling so far removed from her own life. There's a particularly dangerous kind of loss, the loss of the right to be an imperfect human being. The mother has to be okay. She has to be grateful. She has to be strong. She has to endure. And when they can't do those things, they don't just hurt, they're ashamed of having hurt. No one calls these things losses. They call it sacrifice. A beautiful word, but it makes the pain invisible. Because when it's a sacrifice, there's no room for lamentation, regret, or sadness. But the truth is, you can love your child with all your heart, and still grieve over what you've lost. Those two things aren't contradictory. It's just that no one has ever given women the right to say that. The pressure to be okay. A mother isn't always asked, "Are you okay?" Often, people assume she's okay, because she's still doing everything she needs to do. The baby is still being cared for. The house is still tidy. The day goes on, and okay, becomes an unspoken requirement. A mother must be okay right after giving birth, even if her body is still aching. She must be okay despite chronic sleep deprivation. She must be okay despite fluctuating emotions. She must be okay, because if she's not okay, she'll be asked in return, "Why aren't you okay?" Society has a very clear image of the ideal mother, a woman who is always gentle, always patient, always grateful for having children, always considers motherhood the noblest calling. In that image, there's no room for prolonged fatigue, no room for anger, there's no room for days when you just want to disappear for a little while. So, when mothers express their exhaustion, they often don't get listened to. They get advice, or comparisons, or unintentionally hurtful remarks. "Everyone used to be like that. Just one child and you're complaining. Cheer up, you'll get used to it." These words teach women one thing very clearly: stop talking. So they learn to act. Act the role of a stable mother. Act the role of a woman in control. Smiles are used to hide fatigue. Silence is used to hide pain. But acting for too long has its price. When mothers aren't allowed to be okay, they begin to doubt their own feelings. Wondering if they're overreacting, blaming themselves for not being strong enough. Comparing yourself to other mothers, those who seem to be doing better. The pressure to be okay doesn't just come from the outside. It gradually becomes an internal voice. A voice that reminds you every time you want to stop. Don't be weak. I have to endure. I'm a mother. And the mother continues, even when she's exhausted. Continues to give, even when there's nothing left to give. Continues to struggle, even when her body and mind are warning her. There's a heartbreaking paradox. The more she tries to appear okay, the further she drifts away from herself. Suppressed emotions don't disappear, they accumulate. They transform into irritability, emptiness, numbness, or a prolonged feeling of paralysis. Many mothers don't call it depression. They just think they're inadequate. They don't seek help, for fear of being judged, fear of disappointing others. They are afraid to admit that they don't live up to the image of the mother they were taught to be. But the truth is, no one can be okay forever in a role that demands too much without allowing rest. Being allowed to be okay doesn't make you a bad mother. It just makes you a person living true to your limits. And perhaps, what hurts many mothers the most isn't the exhaustion but the fact that they have to pretend not to be tired for too long. When survival becomes the sole goal, there's a stage in motherhood where a woman no longer thinks about happiness. No dreams, no plans, no imagination of the future. Their only goal is to get through today. No one told them that days like this would come. Days that begin with the lingering fatigue from the previous day. Days when getting out of bed is a huge effort. Days when they no longer ask, "What do I want?" but only, "How can I keep everything from falling apart?" Survival at this point isn't dramatic. It's quiet. It's consistent. It's persistent. It's still getting up when the baby cries. It's still preparing meals even when you no longer feel hungry. It's still smiling when needed, even when you're empty inside. There are days when a mother no longer recognizes whether she's truly living or merely functioning. Everything happens out of habit, according to schedule, according to responsibility. They don't allow themselves to stop and feel, because feeling could bring them down, and they don't have time to fall apart. During this period, the woman learns to lower her expectations, no longer hoping to be a good mother, only hoping not to make too many mistakes, no longer hoping tomorrow will be better, only hoping tomorrow will be less bad than today. Surviving also means cutting back on many things. Cutting back on personal needs. Cutting back on relationships. Cutting back on dreams. Not because they don't need them, but because they no longer have the energy to hold on to them. Some dreams don't disappear, but are relegated to a very distant corner. There, they don't cause more pain, but they are also untouchable. The mother tells herself, "Later, when I have more time, when the child is older," but later drags on for a very long time. During the survival phase, the mother doesn't feel strong. They only feel resilient, a necessary resilience to avoid collapsing along the way. Few realize that survival is also a form of courage. Not the kind of courage that is celebrated, but the kind of courage that no one sees. It's about continuing to be present. It's about not giving up. It's about keeping things from breaking, even when things are cracked inside. But the price of surviving for too long is numbness. When the mother gets used to just getting through the day, she gradually forgets what it truly feels like to live. Joy becomes bland. Sadness is no longer sharp. Everything is in a state of limbo. Many mothers remain in this state for a long time without realizing it. They didn't call it depression. They just thought they were doing the right thing. Until one day, they realized they had survived very well, but didn't know how to continue living. Survival is not a failure. It's a natural human reaction to being overwhelmed by circumstances. But survival shouldn't be the ultimate goal. Mothers aren't born just to endure. They also need to live, to feel, to desire, to hope, in their own way. Things women learn on their own, in pain. No one sits down and teaches a woman these things. There are no instruction manuals. There is no mental preparation before they become mothers. The most important things, they learn on their own, in silence, in mistakes, and in pain. They learn to suppress their emotions, not because they don't feel anything, but because they feel too much. Tired, sad, angry, resentful, all at once. And when there's no safe place to vent, they learn to push it inside. Emotions become something to manage, not something to listen to. They learn to disappear from conversations unrelated to their children. Disappear from relationships that are no longer strong enough to hold. Disappearing from their own personal desires, because everything else takes precedence. This disappearance isn't noisy. It happens slowly, until the woman realizes it's been a long time since anyone asked her what she likes. They learn to love their children while no longer loving themselves. A difficult paradox to articulate. They care for their children with everything they have, but say harsh things to themselves. Why can't I do better? Why am I so weak? Tenderness for their children is sometimes exchanged for cruelty to themselves. They learn to endure in silence. Not because they don't want help, but because they tried to speak up and weren't listened to. Each time they are belittled, compared, told, everyone is like that, they learn another lesson. Silence hurts less. They learn to function when they are completely exhausted. Their bodies signaled to stop, but they had no choice. Their minds needed rest, but their schedules wouldn't allow it. So they learned to push boundaries, a skill no one should ever have. They learned to live with constant guilt. Guilty for being tired. Guilty for wanting to be alone. Guilty for not feeling as happy as they should feel. Guilty became the default emotion, silent but persistent. No one told women that these things weren't instinct. This was adaptation. A person is forced to change to survive in a situation that doesn't allow for weakness. And the most heartbreaking thing is, society often mistakes that adaptation for strength. People praise them for their endurance, for their sacrifice, for their motherhood, but few ask, what is the price? The price is prolonged, unhealed exhaustion. It's a feeling of alienation from oneself. It's a version of a woman who exists, but no longer lives fully. Many women only realize this when they've gone too far, when their bodies are forced to stop by illness, when emotions break down in panics, depression, or deep emptiness. Only then do they understand, what they learned to survive is also what is hurting them. These lessons don't make women weak. They show how much they've had to struggle on their own. But it's time to say clearly, not every lesson learned in pain is worth keeping. What no one tells, you're allowed to be okay. There's a simple truth, yet rarely told to women after becoming mothers. You're allowed to be okay. Not the kind of okay for attention. Not the kind of okay to complain about. But the kind of okay that truly reflects a person burdened with too much responsibility, too many changes, too much pressure all at once. But this permission is almost non-existent in the world of mothers. From the beginning, women are taught that motherhood requires sacrifice. Sacrifice is not allowed to be complained about. We're not allowed to be weak. We're not allowed to be tired. And being okay is seen as a fault. A sign that you're not good enough. Not strong enough. Not grateful enough. Many women carry a sense of guilt simply because they aren't as happy as they should be. Just because there are days they don't want to hold their child again. Just because they miss their old life. Just because they're tired. But tiredness isn't a failure. Tiredness is a natural reaction of a body and mind that has been working for too long without rest. No one tells a woman that you can love your child deeply and still hate motherhood. Those two things don't cancel each other out. They coexist, and that doesn't make you a bad mother. You're allowed to be okay when you feel like you're no longer yourself. You feel empty even when your child is in your arms. You feel lonely even when you're not alone. You feel like you're trying so hard but still feel inadequate. Being okay doesn't mean you don't know how to be a mother. Being okay just means you are a human being. The danger isn't being okay. The danger is not being allowed to admit you're not okay. When a mother isn't allowed to express her exhaustion, that exhaustion doesn't disappear. It transforms into self-blame, into paralysis, into silent thoughts that make them believe, maybe the problem is with me. But the problem isn't with you. The problem lies in a system that has given women too much responsibility, without giving them enough support. Being allowed to be okay doesn't mean giving up. It's the first step to being true. True to your limits. True to your feelings. True to the fact that you can't bear it anymore. Only when allowed to be okay can a mother begin to recover. Not to become a better version, but to become a living version of herself. You don't need to tell everyone. Just have one place, one person, or even yourself where you don't have to pretend to be okay. There are women who go their whole lives without ever hearing this. You're okay, even if you're not. But if you're reading this today, let that saying be said, at least once. You're allowed to be not okay. And that doesn't take away your value as a mother. It just affirms that you are also a human being who deserves to be kept. The small path. Not salvation, but staying in it. Not every mother needs a major change. Not everyone needs to become stronger. Many women simply need to avoid disappearing again. The path for them isn't salvation. It's not starting over. It's not becoming a better, more positive, more resilient version of themselves. Sometimes the path is simply staying in their own lives. Staying in when you want to ignore your emotions to get things done. Staying in when you're about to tell yourself, I'm okay, when you clearly are. Staying in those very small, very ordinary, but real, moments. No one tells women that recovery doesn't come from big decisions. It comes from small, repeated choices, safe enough not to scare you. A small path could be allowing yourself to sit still for a few minutes after your child is asleep, instead of rushing to clean up. Eating a full meal, without rushing or standing. Turning off your phone for 10 minutes without feeling guilty. These things don't make you a selfish mother. They just remind you that you still exist. Staying still also means learning to recognize your limits. Not to be weak, but to avoid hurting yourself further. Some days, staying still simply means not scolding yourself. Not using the harshest words against yourself. Not comparing yourself to the perfect mother image you see everywhere. Some days, staying still means saying a very short sentence. I'm not okay today. To someone safe enough, or with yourself. It's not always about solutions. Sometimes, all you need is recognition. Another small path is to allow yourself to be supported. Not every woman is taught how to ask for help. Many grow up believing that being able to do everything yourself is the best approach. But motherhood isn't a test of endurance. If you're overwhelmed, that's not a failure. It's a sign that you need more people, more time, more space. Staying put also means not forcing yourself to get better too quickly. Recovery isn't a straight line. Some days you feel lighter, other days you're just as tired. The important thing isn't to move quickly, but not to abandon yourself on bad days. There's no one-size-fits-all path. Your little path may be different from everyone else's, but if it helps you breathe a little easier, if it helps you stop feeling like you're disappearing, then it's enough. Staying put isn't selfish. It's a necessary condition for you to continue staying with your child, not just out of responsibility, but with a real presence. No one needs you to be a perfect mother. Your child doesn't need a mother who sacrifices herself to the point of exhaustion. Your child needs a mother who is still there, with herself. And sometimes, the journey begins with just one small decision. Today, I won't leave myself behind. Conclusion. No one teaches, but you don't learn alone. No one teaches women how to survive motherhood. There are no workshops on losing yourself and then finding yourself again. There's no warning that love can also come with loneliness and exhaustion. If you've gone through the earlier parts of this story and see yourself in it, that doesn't mean you're weak. It just means you've gone through something too big, too fast, too much and weren't adequately prepared. You're not wrong to feel tired. You're not selfish to feel empty. You're not bad to have days when you just want to disappear for a bit to breathe. The most important thing to say, the one rarely said, you don't have to learn to survive alone. There are many mothers out there asking the same questions you're asking. I'm also trying to get through the day. I'm also keeping myself going in very small, very quiet ways. You don't need to become stronger to deserve help. You just need to be honest about where you are. If you're still surviving today, if you're still present, still taking care of your children, still continuing, that's enough to be recognized. And if there are times when you feel like you're slipping away, please remember, seeking support isn't failure. That's how people survive when they can't hold on any longer. No one will teach you how to do this. But that doesn't mean you have to learn it in solitude. Somewhere, there's always a place, a person, a space where you can say, I'm not okay, and not be judged. If this video makes you feel seen, then perhaps you're not as alone as you think.